You can tell a real campfire yarn long before anyone speaks. It's in the way the kettle hums before the boil and the way the red dust settles on your boots like it's claiming you for the night. It's in the quiet someone chooses, right before the first sentence lands. That's when you know you're about to hear something that doesn't live on paper. It lives in the breath between the words. My name's Jack, and my grandfather taught me how to listen to a story before I ever learned to tell one. We'd set a small fire behind the windbreak of the ute, boil the billy till it spat, and he'd say, "Righto. No talking till the first crack." He meant the fire's crack, not ours. A fire that won't crackle doesn't trust you yet. I never knew if he believed that or if he just wanted me to sit still for one blessed minute. Either way, I learned to wait. This yarn starts on a night when the fire forgot to crackle. We were camping past the dog fence, somewhere the map turned honest again. No streets, no signs, just a long breath of ochre. The sky was big enough to make you humble. My cousin Ben was along, a year older and twice as loud. He reckoned stories are like horses, best ridden hard, no brakes, ask forgiveness later. I was more like Pop, slow at the start, steady round the middle, and very fussy about the finish. Ben had dragged a fallen limb across the red to prop his boots on, and Pop was coaxing a stingy flame into something respectable. The billy sat on a triangle of stones, doing that soft pre-whistle thing, and I could taste the eucalyptus in the air the way you taste a memory before you remember the details. Then it happened, or rather, it didn't. No crack. No spark pop. Just a sulking glow like the coals had decided to keep their thoughts to themselves. Ben grinned. "Looks like it doesn't trust you, Pop." Pop didn't look up. "Then we'll have to trust it first," he said, and gave the tiniest puff with his lips, the kind that turns ember into heartbeat. He had a rule for everything around a fire. Don't poke a coal that's thinking. Don't sit where the wind will sit later. Don't make a joke before the first sentence. The rules weren't written anywhere, and that was the point. Storytelling wasn't something you learned out loud. You learned it by carrying wood. The billy hissed a promise, and I reached for the tin mugs. Pop's hand stopped mine without touching it, the way he did when I was 10 and grabbing for a hot handle. He nodded at the fire. "Listen." We waited. There was that outback kind of silence, a silence that isn't empty at all. It's got insects in it, and the shuffle of a lizard, and the far-off complaint of a windmill. The Milky Way had spilled itself like sugar. Then, at last, a single, thin crack. A seed of a sound. Pop smiled a little. "Now we can begin. If you've stuck around this long, you're a certain kind of person, the kind who knows a story doesn't start with the story, it starts with the listening. If this is your kind of night, fire, quiet, a voice that means it, stick with me till the end. You'll hear something I've never said out loud before." Pop started with the usual waypoints, a place name no one agreed on, a year that felt like someone else's jacket, the sort of details you only include to prove you aren't making the rest up. Then he said, "We used to keep a tin under the passenger seat. Not money. Names." He let the sentence sit like a lantern on the ground. Ben shifted. "Names of what?" "Names of who?" Pop said. "People who gave us a story and people who took one away." The wind nudged the smoke toward us, and the night took one step closer. Pop's profile looked carved, nose like an axe handle, cheekbones that had learned their lesson from a son. He poured 3 teas and passed them round. "Sip. This one's a long road." He told us about a track he used to run with my nan before we were born, a route that strung stock camps like beads on a wire. At each place, the old fellas would sit him down and share what they called a yarn but treated like mass. Some were big, like the time a storm took a roof and gave back a clean well. Some were small, like the best way to convince a stubborn billy goat he wasn't the boss anymore. But each one had a shape, a true beginning, a middle that made you wonder, and an ending that didn't cheat. "Then I went to Urinia," Pop said, "and a bloke there taught me the rule no one writes down." Ben's boot came off the branch with a thud. "Which is?" "If you can tell it without making yourself the hero, you might be ready," Pop said. "If you can't, you're just showing off." He let that settle, and I felt the night edit itself around his words. I thought of all the half-stories Ben told that were mostly about Ben, and of my own private habit of polishing the second act till it gleamed like a lie. The fire gave us another crack, louder this time, as if in agreement. Pop turned his mug in his hands. "A man at Urinia gave me a story that wasn't mine to keep," he said. "I wore it anyway, proud as a new hat, and I lost a friend for 2 summers." Ben sat forward. "What did you do?" "I told it too soon," Pop said simply. "Told it like I'd lived it. I hadn't. So I wrote his name on paper and fed it to a small flame in apology. After that, The tin under the seat wasn't just for names. It was for patience. Ben laughed. You keep patience in a tin. Pop smiled. Where do you keep yours? Ben had nothing for that, and the billy had everything, so it sang. Pop lifted it off with the wire handle and topped us up. He took a small sip and glanced at me. Your turn. What? First sentence, Pop said. The fire trusts us now. It crackled first. Your sentence. This was our private ritual. If the fire made the first noise, I had to make the first line. If I started right, I bought the night. If I flubbed it, Ben would ride in and ruin it with a joke so good you'd hate him for it. I looked at the coals, then the sky, and let the whole of it come to a point. We only remembered the night because the wind forgot our names, I said. Pop tilted his head in that way he did when a dog does a new trick. Ben said, not bad, which, translated from Ben, meant, I will not try to beat that yet. I took a breath. The story came to meet me. It was late September, and we were further west than Pop liked, but you couldn't outrun the idea once it chose you, I said, and everything familiar fell into place. The cadence, the pauses, the small coins you spend only when you mean it. We had a campfire too proud for the wood we gave it, and the wind didn't want to sit anywhere for long. Then, out of that nowhere, a man came walking. Not a ghost. Not a stranger. Just a man with a hat that had more miles than we did. Ben rolled his eyes. Haunted swagman alert, he muttered, but he smiled, and Pop's eyes shone. The outback does this to you. It gives you a place you can say old things out loud without feeling like you nicked them from a calendar. The man asked for tea, I said, and when Pop passed him the mug, he took it with both hands the way church teaches. He didn't drink, though. He smelled it first, like he was making sure the night and the water were on speaking terms. Then he said, I had a son once. He was as impatient as a stick of TNT in summer. The fire pushed a small spark up that didn't become anything. The kettle ticked as if it had bones. I could feel the story bending toward a place where it would either ring true or turn cheap. I was near the middle, the most dangerous place, where you're tempted to arrange the truth in a way that flatters your voice. I thought of Pop's rule. If you can tell it without making yourself the hero. Here's your midhook, the part one haven't told anyone until now. The man was my father. He didn't look like my memory of him. Too thin, too careful with his hands, like they'd learn hard manners. He'd left when I was 6.5, which meant my primary recollection of him was the shape of a hat going away. Yet there he was, asking for tea he didn't drink and offering a sentence he'd carried across a lot of hot, dumb miles. Ben didn't recognize him. He wasn't wired for backward looking. Pop recognized him before I did. Not by his face, by the way his shoulder made room for regret. Pop had seen a lot of men carry things worse than sadness. Sit, Pop said, like the command that keeps a dog safe. And my father did. He told us nothing and everything. He'd followed work and lost it and followed something else and lost that too. He'd meant to fix it sooner and then meant to fix it later. He had a collection of mentors and no place to put them. He wasn't here for forgiveness. He was here because he'd run out of tracks. He didn't ask who I was. He knew. He looked at my hands in the firelight the way a boxer reads tape. You hold your mug like your mother, he said. I hold it like someone who doesn't let go, I said, and the knight nodded as if satisfied that honesty had found the right page. Pop didn't fix it for us. That was another of his rules. You can't build a bridge across a river no one agrees is there. He just poured another tea and told a small story about a fence that wasn't where the map said it was, and how the only way to find it was to listen for the wind hitting wire. He was talking about fences, but he was teaching us to hear around the hurt. My father's eyes were noisy. He took his hat off, then on again, and finally found a piece of ground that agreed with him. I've said sorry in my head for years, he said. It didn't seem to help anyone. I thought about all the versions I'd rehearsed, the speeches I'd line edited in the shower, the sharp little sentences you think will settle a debt. None of them fit here. The outback has no use for clever. So I made us a fresh rule on the spot. A real yarn doesn't fix anything. It puts a chair next to the thing and waits with you. We are not talking it right tonight, I said. We are just staying. No one moved. A moth found the edge of the light and changed its mind. Far away, something with a future yipped at something with teeth. And the fire, that stubborn old referee, finally gave a clean, radiant crack that sounded like a handclap in a small hall. Pop grinned at that sound, the smile he kept for moments when the world chose sense again. There we are, he said softly. Now the story believes us. My father asked for sugar. We didn't have any. He took his tea without complaint and sipped it like an apology you try on and decide to keep. Ben, who couldn't abide silence for long, asked him the only question he could get his big mouth around. "You staying?" he said. "For how long?" I added, and the words didn't taste as bitter as I expected. "A night," he said. "And maybe one honest breakfast." We nodded. A bargain with no weight we couldn't carry. Pop topped the billy with water from the canvas bag and fed the sulking fire a few dry splits. The stars above us had that smug, measured look they get when they realize you've stopped trying to be impressive. We told small stories after that, practical things that carry love without bragging. The right way to roll a swag if you want the morning to forgive you. How to coax a reluctant flame with patience instead of breath. The name of a track that saves you 20 minutes if the creek is feeling cooperative. Not the kind of law you'd quote in a book. The kind you pass hand to hand, like a hot mug and the warning that comes with it. When the tea turned shy and the coals found their proper hum, Pop leaned back and gave us the end without a trumpet. "Every yarn worth its matches leaves a door open," he said. "You don't slam a moral on it. You leave a space where the listener can put their own boots." He closed his eyes then, not asleep, just approving of the night. Ben stretched and made a theatre of failing to crack his back. My father set his mug down on the dirt with ridiculous care, as if not to wake something we were letting rest for once. I didn't forgive him. That's not what happened. I did something else. I let the story be bigger than the wound. I let the fire crackle first. Sometimes that's all the outback wants from you. Be quiet till the country decides you can speak. We slept under a sky that had opinions about smallness. In the morning, the light came on like a calm idea. My father was there when I woke and there when the billy sang, and he ate damper with us in a silence that didn't owe anybody money. He didn't make promises, and he didn't ask for any. He just put his name into the space the night had left open and let it sit there. When he stood, hat in hand, I thought of all the endings I'd rehearsed, the kind where you say the line that wins. Instead, I poured a fresh tea into a spare mug and handed it to him handle first. "For the road," I said. "Righto," he said, and it sounded the way amen sounds when it comes from a place without walls. He walked away like a man who knows the track still owes him a lesson and is finally ready to pay attention. Ben whistled something rude and affectionate. Pop took a long breath that came out like a prayer he didn't know he knew. The fire, satisfied with us, snapped twice. Good, clean, forgiving sounds. If you're still here, if you've listened all the way to this crackle, you're my kind of company. Do me a favor, pass this story on to someone who needs a night when nothing has to be fixed. And if you want more fires like this, more quiet chairs beside unfixable things, subscribe. That's all this channel is. We keep the old rules warm and make a little space for the new ones. I never found the tin under Pop's passenger seat. Maybe it was a lie he told to make a boy careful with borrowed stories. Or maybe the outback put it back in the dust where it came from. Either way, I keep my name somewhere safer now, not in a tin, but in the way I start. I wait for the first crack. Then I tell the truth I can carry. The last time I camped there, years after Pop went where fires don't need matches, I made a small blaze behind the ute and listened to it decide if it trusted me. The night took its time, and I didn't rush it. Then, a crack like a grin in the dark. I said the quiet sentence out loud, not to nostalgia, but to the country that taught it to me. Righto. Now we can begin.